What's going on, guys? It is Will here, back again, once again, for the fourth, I believe, episode of the season 2 of the Gridiron Talk podcast. I'm obviously with my boy Shane, the Rocket Rider, and we're going to be talking about week 11 of the NFL season. And oh my gosh, with the upsets last week, so many to talk about, so many to go over. We got to go over some news. There's only one major news this week. That happened. But overall, what a crazy week in football. Would you say, Shane? We had the Dolphins beat the Ravens, the Buccaneers losing, the Rams losing. A lot of upsets, huh?
I hate Tyler Haneke. I just want to say that.
Yeah. Looks like he got revenge for last year's wild card game.
Yeah, the team is trash, so it don't matter.
But like I said, we're gonna go over the news. We only have one key, acquisition / release, and then we're gonna go over every game like we always do. Go over our games of the week and the picks record. Which, spoiler alert, we do have a new leader in the picks record. So finally, someone's not tied anymore. Our records are still trash, like they're still not really good, but at least we got a leader now, huh? So let's get into the news, and we'll go right into our Thursday night game, which will be tonight. So for NFL news, we just have one key news, and that's the Ravens release Le'Veon Bell. And I'm not really too surprised about this because Latavius Murray has been tearing it up. I mean, me and Shane, we play Madden. I'm 7-2, by the way. And Shane can't stop Latavius Murray on the Baltimore Ravens.
Don't want to talk about this, Will.
I mean, he thinks Latavius Murray's prime like Eric Dickerson. Like, hey, Shane just cannot stop Latavius Murray. So, but in all seriousness, the Ravens have Latavius Murray, they have Tyson Williams, and they have Devontae Freeman in the backfield. So they really don't need Le'Veon Bell. It sucks that he took that 1 year off from the Steelers, and now he's kind of like just lost his form. That's very unfortunate. But regardless, hopefully he might find a team to contend with. So let's get right into the games. That was the only major news we had this week. We have a big Super Bowl rematch tonight on primetime. The New England Patriots, who are 6-4, go to Atlanta to play the Falcons, who are 4-5, and the Patriots are 6.5-point favorites in this game. So obviously, like I said, this is a Super Bowl rematch. Super Bowl 51, crazy 28-3 comeback. I think this is their first time playing since then. Don't quote me on that though. And the Patriots have had their number on the Falcons. They have won like their last 4 or 5 times against the Falcons. But besides against the Falcons, the Patriots are looking to win their 5th in a row, and they have not lost a game since they lost to the Dallas Cowboys. Another key fact about the Patriots is the Patriots are 2-4 at Gillette Stadium, but they are 4-0 on the road. So they are looking to go 5-0 on the road. And lastly, we got 2 rookies who are making a huge impact on their respective teams. Obviously, me and Shane have praised Mac Jones in the past. We've said he's the best rookie quarterback. And last week, he probably had his best game as a Patriot, stat-wise. He was tearing up the Browns' defense. And on the other side of the ball, we have Kyle Pitts, who was the highest drafted tight end in NFL history. And he leads the tight. I know there's not a lot of tight ends, but he does lead the rookie tight ends in receiving yards. He has 40 catches, 606 yards, and 1 touchdown. So, Shane, what are your thoughts on this matchup between the Patriots and the Falcons tonight on primetime?
I think it's going to be very interesting. I did have something to say about this matchup, but it kind of just like floated out of my head. But yeah, Mac Jones, he had a great. I think he had 3 touchdowns last week, 3, 4. And they just obliterated the Browns. Falcons. I mean, this is a very underrated matchup in my opinion. And this is what I was going to say. Patriots are only, I believe, a half a game back behind the Bills. I want to say. I think that's correct. I'm not. I do remember them being a half a game back at some point, but either way, I think Patriots are going to be a playoff team. I don't think the Falcons will be, but this is still going to be a very good matchup.
And another thing about the Patriots is that going into the season, people were really high on them, and I wasn't because I was like, they have a rookie quarterback. What team have we seen recently where a rookie quarterback leads his team to the playoffs? I honestly can't think of one recently off the top of my head.
I mean,
I can't. I mean,
you had Washington last year, but Heineke didn't lead them there.
Not. I don't really think that. I don't really think that counts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I mean, like rookie really first rounder, like last year would have been like Joe Burrow if he led the Bengals to the playoffs last year.
Did Lamar Jackson after he took?
No, he didn't. Oh yeah. After he took over for Flacco, yes.
Did they make playoffs that year?
Yep, they lost to the Chargers in the first round. So, but my point is like it doesn't happen often. And going into that season, the Ravens were also not projected to start Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
This year, the Mac Jones has been their starter since day one, and he's essentially going to lead them to the playoffs potentially. And I wasn't really high on him, but now I am. I think, like I said last week, he's being coached just like Brady was coached by Belichick with a very run-heavy team, a great defense, and he just makes the conservative throws. Last week was an exception as he really did ball out, like we said. But I do like the direction that the Patriots are going. When the Falcons are kind of like, I don't even know like how to describe their team, right? They're in the middle of like contending, but they're not. They got Matt Ryan, who I don't really know. People are really up in the air about him. I think he's great, but maybe it's time for him to leave the Falcons and maybe go to a team that could use a quarterback like the football team, Washington. But regardless, for this game, I think the Patriots will win a very close game-ish. I think it'll be a one-possession game, 21-13, New England. What about you, Shane?
I think it'll be close, but I think in the end the Patriots are gonna ride away with the victory with winning 24-14.
Lead us into our next game, Shane. This is also another great game in the AFC.
So we got the Colts who are 5-5 versus the Bills who are 6-3. Bills are 7-point favorites. This is a rematch of the AFC wildcard game. Colts are looking for their first win in Buffalo since I believe 2003. Two interesting, very very good defenses in my opinion. Are meeting for a crucial game in a playoffs race. The Bills, they were very high this year. They're on top of the division, but they've been struggling, in my opinion, minus the last game against the Jets, which it's the Jets. I feel like they've lost their hype and their tone a little bit, because now they only hold a half game ahead of the Patriots, who we just got done talking about, in the division.
English,
So
Shane.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I agree. I think the Bills going into the season were a very high team. I feel like all three teams, the Buccaneers, Chiefs, and Bills, were very high going in, and both teams have not been playing as good as people expected. And I don't really know what to attribute to that, but the point is that the Bills are a very good team that are kind of under the radar now. The Colts, on the other hand, are the same thing. I mean, the Colts are 5-5. We talked about how the Colts are probably the best team in the NFL, but they're better than their record shows. And that's attributed to their bad start. The Colts had a very bad start. They started off like I think he said like 0-3 or 0-4, but they came off of a good win against the Jaguars. They beat the Jets. They got two back-to-back wins. So now the Colts sit at 5-5. So now here's the factor for the Colts is can they win this game against the Bills? A very important game for them if they want to stay in the AFC playoff picture. I personally don't think so, but I think the Colts will sneak into the playoffs because I really think the Colts are a very good team. What do you think about the Colts? You think they make the playoffs or no?
There's a lot of teams like the Colts in the AFC, in my opinion. I know you don't want to say it, but
Don't say it. Don't say it.
The
Don't.
Steelers, may be one of
Yep.
those teams.
Yep.
The Raiders, maybe even the Broncos, but it's highly unlikely. But out of all the teams that could sneak in, I think the Colts will be the top team that is the most likely. They have a playoff defense. Their offense is very underrated. Jonathan Taylor,
man. He's a dog.
Jonathan, I mean, even though it took people 2 extra weeks to catch up to Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, I believe, has passed Derrick Henry in the most yards this year.
No, they're actually tied.
They're tied. Okay, so either way, Henry's out for the season, so obviously Taylor will more likely take that spot. He's a special running back. Carson Wentz, I mean, there's a lot of speculation on how people view him, how he plays. I think he's having an underrated season compared to his previous seasons, going back after his MVP year. Or as close to MVP year, I should say, since he didn't win it. I think this is going to be a very good game because both defenses are very good.
I think the X factor here is Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I think the Bills pull out a close victory against the Indianapolis Colts, 24-20. What about you, Shane?
I have a similar score. I have the Bills winning 23-17.
Let's get into our next game, which record-wise, these two teams doesn't look like a good game, but story-wise and media-wise, this is probably one of the best games of the week. We got the Washington football team who are 3-6 against the Carolina Panthers who are 5-5. Now, Ron Rivera meets longtime QB and good friend Cam Newton in Cam Newton's first start in his return to Carolina. Obviously, both teams pulled off big upsets last week. Washington beat the Buccaneers, as we kind of briefly went over, and the Panthers beat the Cardinals. So the Panthers brought in Cam Newton for one reason, and that is to win. And he didn't play a lot last week. He was more of like in very specific offensive sets, but he played great for like the 5 snaps he was out there. He went 3 for 4. He threw a touchdown, and he also ran in a touchdown. So he played really well, even though he wasn't out on the field long. And I feel like getting this chemistry with the Panthers offense will just make them even better. The Panthers have a very underrated defense that people don't really talk about with Brian Burns, or Stephon Gilmore, AJ Bouye, Dante Jackson. They got really good secondary that people really do not express about. Like I've said, Shaq Thompson at linebacker. So the Panthers got a really good defense. When Washington on the other end will be playing this game without Chase Young, who tore his ACL and is out for the season. He tore his ACL last week against the Buccaneers, who wasn't really having a really great year, but regardless, that's a huge hit for Washington. And the Washington defense was very high going into the year, and they have been underperforming all year long. And it's really just a shame that I almost said the Redskins. Whoops, that Washington was projected to potentially win the division, but now they might not even make the playoffs, which is crazy. So my question for you, Shane, is both of these teams pulled off big upsets, as I said. Which team do you think will start a winning streak? Do you think it will be Washington or Carolina?
I think it's going to be Carolina, just because Cam Newton is being led on, or it's being leaned towards starting this week, which I found that out earlier. I think having Cam in Carolina just brings a whole different type of energy to the team. As you know, Cam started in Carolina. He brought him to the Super Bowl, a 15-1 record, by the way, which is very impressive. I think Cam is completely underrated. I think people are sleeping on him way too much just because he got released and then, didn't play for anybody up until last week when he was picked up by Carolina. The Washington's defense, like you said, I was very high on them coming into the year, as you know, but I don't think they have what it takes this year to even make the playoffs.
And Cam Newton's had a hell of a journey from being their franchise quarterback to getting released last year, getting replaced by Teddy Bridgewater, then sitting out most of the offseason. Then the Patriots go and sign him with probably like 2 weeks, like right after preseason. He leads the Patriots. He has an average year, or slightly below average, 7-9. Doesn't really play the greatest. Played all right though. And then he gets released. People all through training camp, all through preseason was like, this is going to be Cam Newton's team, and if he plays bad, Mac Jones is coming in. And then it's like, oh wow, they released Cam Newton. Even though he arguably played better than Mac Jones in the preseason, they release him, and then he, like you said, Shane, he doesn't have a team for like the first 8 or 9 weeks of the season, and then he gets signed by Carolina after Sam Darnold is most likely out for the rest of the season. So I think Cam Newton will lead this team to victory. Even if he doesn't have any crazy numbers, I think he will be the X factor in winning this game. And I got the Panthers winning a somewhat low-scoring game, 20-13. What about you, Shane?
Same. I also have the Panthers winning 20-17. So
there we go, Shane.
So our next game will be the Ravens, who are 6-3, versus the Bears, who are 3-6. The Ravens are 4.5-point favorites. They lost to the Dolphins last week, which I won't get into, but I don't know how you lose to the Dolphins. Lamar Jackson, speculation on if he will be playing is up in the air because of his non-COVID illness, as you could say. And you could tell on the field that Justin Fields is getting a lot better with the Bears offense, but the Bears aren't helping him in any type of way with their offensive line. I believe he's still the most sacked quarterback in the NFL, and their defense isn't helping them at all either. So, Will, what are your thoughts on this game?
Now, the Bears, I believe, are coming off of a bye. They lost a very questionable game to the Steelers. And I'd be like serious. Like, I'm not saying that the Steelers, like, I'm not just saying this because I don't like the Steelers, but like, I'm being
Let's
genuinely
wait
serious.
To the Steelers trash talk.
No,
later,
no, I'm being serious about here. Like, there's people were really like complaining about how bad the refereeing was in that game. Like, I'm not even just saying that because I don't like the Steelers. I'm being serious. So people were saying that the Bears got snubbed and they should have beat the Steelers, but that's neither here nor there. There was questionable taunting calls. A referee literally like hip checked a player on the Bears and they called him for the flag. So it's like the referees were crazy. And I'm being like serious. Like I know like me and Shane, like I joke around with the Steelers being terrible, and don't worry, we'll get into that later. But like I'm being genuinely serious that people were complaining about how bad the refs were towards the Bears. But regardless, I always say that, don't let the refs dictate the game. You should have won by a big enough score where they were irrelevant. But their Bears offense is just so bad against a great Ravens defense. I don't think the Bears will be able to generate much, especially with Justin Fields and how terrible their offensive line is. Regardless if Lamar plays or not, I think John Harbaugh is a great coach. People don't really talk about him as in the great NFL coaching. And I think the Ravens will win this game mainly on their defense's back. I think the Ravens win 20-7. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, if Lamar plays, I think it's a no-brainer. Ravens are going to win, but if he doesn't, I still think they'll win 24-10.
Our next game, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but there was a tie last week in the NFL. Now, if I told you guys there was a tie, Shane, I'm gonna need you to just hold your thoughts here. I got a question for you. So if I told you, Shane, now put your shoes. You're an NFL casual who thinks the Steelers are the best NFL team in the world, right? You're a casual. Najee Harris is better than Derrick Henry. All of the stuff that they say, right? Okay. So I'm telling you, dude, there was a tie last week, right? Wow, there's ties never happen in football. Who do you think it was? Do you think it was A, NFC West battle between the Rams and the Niners? B, an AFC West battle between the Chiefs and the Raiders? C, Rodgers, Wilson, Seahawks and Packers, both teams coming up, both quarterbacks are coming back after missing some games or a game? Or D, the 0-8 Detroit Lions, of a disgrace of a football team. They literally play like a high school football team against the 5-3 Pittsburgh Steelers with Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, and all those TikTok guys who came into the game like 10-point favorites. Who would you expect to tie that game out of those four teams? Who do you expect?
I can't. As a casual football fan in perspective, definitely not my Steelers. I will say that.
Well, casual football fan, you would be wrong because this team, the Pittsburgh GOAT Steelers, who in some people's eyes is the best team in the AFC North, they can't beat the worst team in the NFL. They can't beat the Lions. The Lions are 0-8-1.
This is what I'll say. Did you
How does that happen?
Did you watch did you watch any part of that game, Mo? Like seriousness. Did you watch
I know. I watched some of it. I know that it was a very ugly game to watch. Some people said they wasted 3 hours of their life watching the game. Jared Goff played like terrible, awful. Mason Rudolph, And I know that DeAndre Swift and Najee Harris both played pretty well. But in poor conditions in the rain and stuff, you can't really blame the quarterbacks, in my opinion, when it's raining like that.
I just want to go through because I watched I watched the entire fourth quarter, and then I watched the entire overtime. I have never seen such ugly football in my life, and I played for Baldwinsville football. That's some pretty ugly football.
Yes,
So,
you guys run it on 3rd and 10. That's
throwing,
ugly football.
throwing shots at my high school team. Jared Goff played terrible. Mason Rudolph or whoever their busty quarterback was that game played terrible. The only upside I saw from that game was honestly Najee Harris. He had I think 25 carries for 115 yards or something like that. They fumbled the ball. They fumbled the ball at least like combined both teams. They fumbled the ball I think 4 times in overtime, and they both teams dropped 2 interceptions in overtime as well. That was in key moments where if they got the pick, they could have kicked an easy field goal to win the game. But both teams sucked because they didn't do it, and then they tied. But forget that. Let's get into this game with.
The rant on that team will continue later. But regardless, the Lions are 0-8-1, and they're playing the Cleveland Browns, who are 5-5, and the Browns are 11.5-point favorites. Now, the Browns are looking for an easy rebound after being blown out by the Patriots last week. We discussed that about Mac Jones. Jared Goff, we already said that he has proven that he is not Detroit's franchise quarterback, but he kind of will be forced for the next couple of years because this year is not a good offensive draft. This is a very defensive-heavy draft, so I don't think the Lions will take a quarterback this year. I think they're just going to keep on making their team overall better. So then eventually they'll be like, all right, our only weakness is quarterback. I think that's the way to do it. And my question to you, Shane, about this game is, do you think Baker Mayfield is holding the Cleveland Browns back? Because I know that's a lot. That question's been going around on social media and Twitter and stuff. That Baker Mayfield is the reason why the Browns are 5-5 and not like 6-4 or 7-3. What do you think on that?
See, you can't. I don't agree with a lot of these football fans, because a lot of these football fans listen to what the media says.
Steelers fans.
And not even that. I'm not even calling all these fans casual fans. Like, I know there's a lot of fan bases that base their opinions off of the media, and they don't go deep into it because they don't think to do that. I don't think Baker's the reason. I think their defense is the reason. I always except for Myles Garrett, obviously, he's been playing phenomenal this year. I mean, the Browns were in the AFC Championship game last year, I believe.
Yeah, AFC divisional game.
Yeah, divisional game, right? So, they've proven, and they basically have the same people as they did last year. So I think it's just the scheduling. I think it's their defense not performing to the level that they're expected to, and that can go the same with the offense. But I don't think Baker's the problem that the Browns are facing.
I agree, and I feel like that there's been a lot of drama with OBJ leaving and stuff that doesn't really help the Browns' outlook.
I think there's more drama with OBJ leaving than when OBJ was there, in my opinion. But you can continue.
The tough thing about the Browns is they have a tough schedule up ahead. As they play after this game, they play the Ravens back to back and then the Raiders. So they're gonna have to start winning games. I think this is where they start, and they potentially start a run. And this, like I said, this is the good team to rebound against the Lions. I think the Browns are going to win 28-10. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb's back. I believe. I think he's going to run over this team. Nick Chubb's a special athlete, as you know. I love Nick Chubb. I have the Browns, winning 24-7. And for our next game, is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. We're going to have the 49ers, who are 4-5, versus the Jaguars, who are 2-7. 49ers are 6-point favorites. The 49ers came up big last week when they beat the LA Rams. I believe they won 31-10.
Yes, sir.
And the only in my opinion, the only problem with the 49ers this year is that they're just not healthy. A couple years ago, they made the Super Bowl, obviously against the Chiefs. They lost. Then last year, they lost half their team the first like 3 weeks, and they just went downhill. Um, that kind of overlapped into this year. But they're doing better. They got a big win over, like I said, the LA Rams, which was a very impressive win. Um, and the Jaguars, they had one great game this year, and they scored I think 9 points in that game against the Bills that they beat the Bills in. Um, I don't think Trevor Lawrence will ever live up to the hype that he was giving.
Ooh, hot
Hot
take.
take. I know your thoughts on Trevor Lawrence. Um, I just don't see him. Like, I know it's his rookie year. I know, we're only 9-10 weeks into the season, but I just don't see Trevor Lawrence being. I see him being in the NFL, but I don't see him being, MVP, uh, Pro Bowler, like all that stuff that he was just. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Touted.
yeah, to be in the future.
All right, guys, that's to conclude this episode of the Gridiron Talk podcast. We'll talk to you guys later. No, I'm kidding. So, I think Trevor Lawrence came into a very tough situation as the Jaguars quarterback, and I think that's why he's struggled. Now, do I think Trevor Lawrence will be an MVP player? Possibly. Do I think he'll be a Pro Bowl player? Possibly. That's really too early to tell. Very few rookies play like a Pro Bowl player in their very first season. I mean, look at Josh Allen, for an example. He played terrible his first season. He got better and better and better. So, and not every quarterback is Josh Allen, but my point is that he has that potential to do that. Now, on the 49ers side of the ball, expect huge games from Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, as they both won off last week against the LA Rams, and Deebo Samuel is just having a very crazy year. He is a great player. He can do it all, and he's really underrated, and he's finally proving to people that how good he really is. And George Kittle is finally having back-to-back big games after being really underrated most of the year. He's having a very quiet year, but he's kind of finally breaking out. I think the 49ers will win this game. Due to these two guys, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, I think the 49ers win this game against the struggling Jaguars team 31-21. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, like you said, Trevor Lawrence was put into a bad situation. I don't think that's like. I mean, that can make him better. Guys, they get better under certain conditions, certain areas. But I do have the 49ers winning 27-10.
Next up, we got a very classic rivalry game coming up. We got the Green Bay Packers, who are 8-2 against the Minnesota Vikings at 4-5, and the Packers are 1.5-point favorites. So the classic and old NFC North rivalry meets for the first time this year. And these are two defenses who are both facing a very tough test with two high-powered offenses. The Vikings came off of a great needed win against the Chargers, and the Vikings got Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, excuse me, as their offensive main gurus. Now, on the Packers side of the ball, they obviously have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. Aaron Jones will be out of this game, so it'll be the A.J. Dillon show at running back. And other key guys they got Alan Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So these are just two very high-powered offenses. So, Shane, my question for you is, how will the Packers fare without their star running back, Aaron Jones, who will be out for 1 to 2 weeks with a very mild MCL sprain?
I don't think AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones are much different. I think AJ Dillon is a phenomenal back. I think he could start anywhere in the NFL if Aaron Jones wasn't the starting running back. I don't think much is going to change. I think, like you said, this is going to be a very good classic rivalry game. I always love watching Packers Vikings games. It's just the energy between them. Both teams got great defenses, and both teams got great offenses. And Vikings are a very underrated team this year. Like I fully believe Vikings could beat the Packers on any day of the week. Um, just certain things have to happen. Um, but I do like the Packers' chances against the Vikings this week.
What are your my thoughts for this game? Prediction wise, is I think it'll be a very close, somewhat high scoring game. I think the Packers are going to win 27-24. And the X factor, Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, man, they don't get better than that with a quarterback and receiver duo. What about you, Shane? Who do you got win this game?
I got the Packers 2017. I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. I think the defense, those are going to be the X factors. How each defense can stop the other. Um, and I think it's going to be a very good game. So our next game, we got the Dolphins, who are 3-7, versus the Jets, who are 2-7, and the Dolphins are 3.5 point favorites. I did not know this until earlier today while I was at work, but Joe Flacco, um, is the starting QB for the Jets this week. Mike White threw, I believe, 4 interceptions last week. So he got benched. Joe Flacco will be starting this week against a um, very good Miami defense. Tua and Jalen Waddle um, are going to be, they're great combo together. The record for the Dolphins don't show it, but I think they're a much better team than 3-7. They've just had to face, in my opinion, a very tough schedule, and they've just had some games that haven't gone their way. Um, if Tua was just a little bit better, I think their record could easily be 5-5. But I think this game is going to be very interesting. We're going to see Joe Flacco starting a game, I think, for the first time since the beginning of last year. I can't remember the last time he started a game, but either way, two teams where people look at, they're like, oh, these two teams are trash. It's going to be a very, very interesting game.
The big thing to watch for me is going to be Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle. And I think that Jalen Waddle, out of the three first-round pick receivers, him, Smith, and Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle is one that doesn't get enough love, and I think he's proving to be a great receiver that people aren't talking about. And I think that those two have a connection from their college days that proved to be the X factor in this game. And I think the Dolphins are going to win this game 20-17. What about you, Shane?
I have the Dolphins winning 17-10.
Next up, we have another NFC battle with two teams who are desperately needing a win to stay alive in the NFC playoff hunt. We got the New Orleans Saints, who are 5-4, against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 4-6, and the Eagles are 2-point favorites in this game. So as we said last week, the Saints defense and Alvin Kamara are going to have to carry them to the playoffs. And the other side of things, or on the other side of the field, Jalen Hurts is making a case to be the Eagles franchise QB. Now, I know going into the season, that was all the question was like, is Jalen Hurts the guy? Is he just a temporary, bridge quarterback? And I think as the seasons progress, he keeps on proving that he is the guy for the Philadelphia Eagles. He just keeps on getting better and better, especially with his repertoire with of receivers with Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith, who is also having a great year as the Eagles' guy, the receiving main threat. And on the other side of the thing, the Saints were a very good team before Jameis Winston got hurt, but I really think their season's over as they almost came back and beat the Falcons, but almost doesn't count in the NFL. So my question to you, Shane, is do you think the Saints are going to go into the Link, a tough field to play at, the home field's really big with the Eagles, against a great Eagles defense that doesn't really get talked about a lot? Darius Slay is having a great year, and going into the season, I was not a big Darius Slay guy. I thought he was overrated, but he's having a really great year for the Eagles, and the Eagles defense as a whole is very underrated and not really talked about a lot. So what are your thoughts on the Saints and Eagles game, and do you think the Saints can pull off the upset here?
I think it will be a close game. I don't have them upsetting them, per se. Um, their defense will have to carry them all the rest of the year if they do make the playoffs, which I don't think they will. Um, I don't think they can compete with the Falcons, the Panthers, or the Bucks for because they're gonna have to win some key games in the next 8 weeks, I believe, um, or 7 weeks, just for them to even get a wild card spot. I think that division is just overall too good for that to happen. But I don't see them making the playoffs.
So who do you fix to win this game between the Saints and the Eagles?
I have the Eagles winning 23-20.
And I have the Eagles winning a little bit of a lower scoring game, a little bit closer, 21-20. But overall, this should be a very good game that people aren't going to be talking about a lot. But I think it's going to be a really close game.
All right, so our next game is gonna be, in my opinion, I think it's gonna be an absolute blowout. But we have the Texans who are 1-8 versus the Titans who are 8-2. Titans are 10.5 point favorites. Titans have won, I believe, 6 games in a row. They are still playing without star running back Derrick Henry. Obviously, he's out for the rest of the regular season. Texans, they've been playing terrible this year. Um, Titans, I believe Titans are the best team in the AFC. I believe they are one of the best teams in football. I would put them top 3. They are proving they can win without key players. Ryan Tannehill is playing great so far this year. I know a lot of people hate on him because they think Derrick Henry carries a team, which to a certain point that's true. But if you don't have a good QB or a relatively average QB, you're not going to have a good team. And that's just football facts 101. You can fight me about it. I don't care.
I don't recommend fighting, Shane.
I'm friendly, guys. I do have I have the Titans taking control of this game and taking control big. How about you, Will?
This game is going to be an utter and straight pounding on the Houston Texans, all right? Because the Titans are without 2 key offensive players. They don't have Derrick Henry or Julio Jones, but they keep on winning games, which is something that is just proving that this is a great team. Some teams, like an example, would be the Saints. I mean, look at they've lost. They didn't have Michael Thomas. They still don't have him, and they don't have Jameis Winston, and they haven't won the game since Jameis Winston went out. So with some teams, you lose some key offensive guys, you lose games. When the Titans are defying that and saying, without 2 of our best players, we can still win games. So because of that and the fact they're playing the Texans, who are basically a high school football team, I think the Titans are going to win this game 31-3 in the complete and utter blowout. What about you, Shane?
I'm right there with you, Will. I have the Titans winning 21-3.
Our next game we have is a very interesting matchup between the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 5-4, and the Las Vegas Raiders, who are 5-4. And the Bengals come into this game as 1-point favorites. So it's kind of odd how the NFL works. Is just a few weeks ago, both of these teams were at the top of the AFC. Now they are both on the outside looking in. And which team will stop that skid? The Raiders have lost 2 in a row. They lost to the Giants, and they got blown out by the Chiefs. When the Bengals, on the other hand, have lost to they beat the Ravens. The Bengals lost to the Chargers. Oh no, they lost to the Browns and the Jets. So that's who the Bengals have lost to. So 2 losses. The Jets was unacceptable. They lost to Mike White, and that is just unacceptable. But the Raiders, on the other hand, like I said, they lost to the Giants and the Chiefs. Now, I think both of these teams have potential to be a playoff team, but one of them obviously will not make it. I think the AFC is way too competitive, and one of these teams will be on the short end of the stick. The Raiders have had a lot of drama with Henry Ruggs, that whole situation, and John Gruden. But overall, both of these teams are still pretty good teams. What are your thoughts on this matchup, Shane, between the Bengals and the Raiders?
I believe that the Raiders are not overhyped, not underhyped, not accurate, but I do think people are pushing towards that they're better than their record, which to a certain extent, I believe is true. but I do not believe that the Raiders are going to be a playoff team because you have the Chiefs, who, Patrick Mahomes came off 5 TDs, all that. He's looking better now. There's so many good teams in the AFC, like you said. Um, Between these two teams, I would rather say the Bengals will make it to the playoffs more than the Raiders will. But this game is still this is gonna be a very good game regardless.
This is gonna be a very good game, a very offensive game. Excuse me. With Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and then Darren Waller, who has been having a quiet couple weeks, he's looking to break out. But I think the Raiders will finally get back on track and stop their losing streak. I think the Raiders win this game 27-21. What about you, Shane?
I have this as a very close game. I have the Bengals winning 24-23.
Oof.
So now we get into my personal game of the week. We have the Cowboys, who are 7-2, versus the Chiefs, who are 6-4. The Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. Chiefs are coming off a great game against the Raiders. Patrick Mahomes, I believe, threw for 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. He's looking like classic Patrick Mahomes. Cowboys, they've been playing very well this year. I know you hate to admit it because you talk about it every single time we are around each other. Cowboys,
they're good.
Have been playing great this year. Dak Prescott been playing great defensively. They've been playing phenomenal. Diggs, I think he's got 9 interceptions this year.
8 or 9, yeah, something like that. Something crazy.
This is going to be a very heavy offensive game. But the question is, can the Cowboys prove they are serious Super Bowl contenders? What are your thoughts on this, Will?
This is a great game, and like you said, I hate to admit it, but the Dallas Cowboys are pretty damn good. They just are defying the odds. They're winning games, and they proved to people last week where they lost that game to the Broncos in embarrassing fashion, and they embarrassed the Falcons in return. So this team is just, when they're clicking, and you can't stop them with Dak and Zeke and Tony Pollard, who can start on any team, by the way. I think he's a great running back. Dalton Schultz, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. This team is so talented. And the biggest question for the Cowboys was their defense. And their defense has a bend but don't break approach, which basically means, who cares if they get all the way to the 5-yard line if we get a turnover at that 5-yard line? It doesn't matter, Or if they're about to drive and they're about to run the ball in, we'll strip them, get a fumble. And that's what the Cowboys have been doing, especially with Trayvon Diggs. I think he's very overrated because of the yards he gives up, but the picks he gets up in return are very crucial. It's a very double-edged sword. Yes, he could get burned the whole game. Yes, he could, get torched, and he could be playing like a joke. But, when it's 2 minutes to go and it's 24-20 Dallas and he gets the game-winning pick at the goal line, they're not going to care about the yards he gave up at the end of the day, because he won them the game. And that's how the Cowboys' mentality is: bend but don't break, which is how you have to have a defense in the NFL nowadays.
Side note, he almost cost that game against the Patriots. Me and you watched that game out to dinner.
Yes, he did.
I believe he gave up a 60-yard touchdown, but obviously
Cowboys
came back and they had a game-winning drive of their own. So, but yeah, go ahead, Will.
Let me just say, like I said, the bend but don't break approach in defenses and nowadays is how the NFL will be trending towards in the future, in my opinion. Teams like the Bears, like the Steelers, who have historically great defenses, I think that's going to be phased out because the NFL is just moving into a progressive offensive-minded league. But that's just my opinion. So I would rather have a team with a defense like the Cowboys, who may give up a lot of yards, but they give up a lot of turnovers, they cost a lot of turnovers, than a team like the Steelers or the Bears, who just have a great defense, but they can't really score a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, excuse me, sorry. In my opinion, I believe that the NFL is going that way as well. Personally, I don't want it to go that way. I have always believed in hard-nosed, great defense of football. as saying that as a defensive player, but I don't think the Cowboys defensively. If Patrick Mahomes can keep the turnovers to a minimum, I think the Chiefs win this game easily. However, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be an easy game for either one of these teams to win. I have the Chiefs winning 24-20.
I have the Chiefs winning too. The X factor for this game is just Travis Kelce. He ate against last week against the Raiders, and I think he'll eat again this week. And also Tyreek Hill and Trayvon Diggs is going to be fun to watch because the Cowboys fans who suck off Trayvon Diggs are literally just going to get embarrassed when Tyreek Hill runs right by him because he runs a 4.22 or something crazy like that. So regardless, though, I got the Chiefs win this game 35-32 in a very offensive, high-scoring game. Next up, we got the last game before we get into the two primetime games, the Sunday and Monday night games. We got the NFC West battle between the Arizona Cardinals, who are 8-2, and the Seattle Seahawks, who are 3-6. And the Arizona Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Now, the Cardinals are looking to stay on top of the NFC West. Luckily, they all lost last week besides the 49ers, so they're still on top, even though they did lose to the Panthers. Well, on the other flip side of it, the Seahawks' playoff hopes are looking slim. They got shut out last week by the Packers 17-0, and that was the first time that Russell Wilson was shut out in his NFL career. And if they want to not only stay alive in the NFC West playoff race, which is looking very slim, but if they want to even make the playoffs, they need Russell Wilson to play like his old self and not like he played last week against the Packers. So I think Kyler Murray. Sorry, I had a massive brain fart. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins will be back for this game, and I think they will be X factors to see if the Cardinals can get back on track. And I think for the Seahawks, the X factor is Russell Wilson having more time to rehabilitate his finger to make him play better. And just DK Metcalf, I know he might get suspended. If they don't think he will be, but he had like an off the field antics. He let his emotions get to you, and that's what you want to see in a football player. Love it or hate it. That's how you know you love the game. If you get emotional, you try to keep them in check, but regardless, emotions will get the best of you. So, what are your thoughts on this game, Shane, between the Cardinals and the Seahawks?
I think, there's a lot of games this week where it's, 50-50. It could go either way. But this game, it literally could go either way, in my opinion. When you have Russell Wilson at QB, you can always count yourself being in the game. And that's just facts that he's shown it since 2012 or 2013, whenever he came in as a quarterback. But with D-Hop and Kyle Murray coming back, I don't see them winning this game. I see it as a close scoring game, but I just don't think the Seahawks have enough to stop Kyle Murray, D-Hop, and that crazy Cardinals offense.
Now, I'm going to have to disagree with you here. I think, like I said, the X factor is Russell Wilson being fully healthy with the pin out of his finger. And I think the Seahawks win a crucial game at home with the 12-man. Their home field advantage is definitely one of the best in the NFL. I think the Seahawks pick up a crucial win, and they upset the Cardinals 24-21. What about you, Shane?
I have almost pretty much the same score. I have the Cardinals winning, though, 23-20. Ooh, this is where it's going to get good, Will. This is where it's going to get good. All right, so we got Will's favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 5-3-1 versus the Chargers, who are 5-4 in a Sunday night matchup. I believe the Chargers are 6-point favorites. So Will, how about them Steelers last week? They tied with the Lions. And that's another thing we could talk about after this. Both teams need a bounce back win to stay hot in the AFC playoff run. Obviously, as we know, the AFC's got a lot of good teams that can make the playoffs, that can make the wild card. It's all about who gets to the finish line first. I believe Big Ben is coming back for this game, so we won't have to see Mason Rudolph. And his phenomenal keyword phenomenal, sarcasm, my guy, play. What are your thoughts on the Steelers and the Chargers here, Will?
Well, let me just say, get ready. I already know, man. They're cracking their fingers. The keyboard warriors are ready. They're ready to decimate me, to roast me. He likes the Giants. He has no reason to talk about my Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow, 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 wow. Now I realize that the Giants aren't a very good team, and we will get into them next game. But here's the thing. I know that the Giants aren't a good team, but the Steelers fans are the complete opposite. I mean, the Steelers could be 0-5, and they'd say, we still could we could make the Super Bowl. You know? Now, last week's game was a complete and utter disgrace, not only to the NFL, but to any fan who likes football. Like, people who like college football, high school football, that was just a disgrace. We played better games in the backyard on the turf playing with the boys, Shane. All right? That was a disgrace of a football game. All right? Now, let me just say that the good news is about the Pittsburgh Steelers on some real stuff is that they're playing arguably the worst run defense in the NFL against the Chargers. And they have a very great rookie running back, Najee Harris. Now, I know I dog on the Steelers, but I've praised Najee Harris all season long. I love Najee Harris. And I also like Pat Freiermuth, the rookie tight end. I've said that numerous times. He's the future of the Steelers. But it doesn't help the fact that they are the most overrated team in the AFC. All right. They can't beat the Lions. But the Steelers fans will attribute that to T.J. Watt not being there, who is the most overrated defensive player in the league. No, he is because
most. I wouldn't say the most, but
top two. He's top two, and he ain't two. All right, he's top two. He ain't two. Now, here's the thing, though, because T.J. Watt. People you got all these fans that they put on their Instagrams, they put on their Facebooks, their Twitters that T.J. Watt was snubbed from the Defensive Player of the Year award, that Aaron Donald is nowhere near T.J. Watt's. If I see someone saying T.J. Watt's better than Aaron Donald, I swear to God, I block him on Instagram. I remove him. I'm like, you're a buffoon. You don't deserve to be talking about football if you don't think the greatest defensive player of this millennium, of the 2010s, is not better than T.J. Watt. Right? T.J. Watt's not better than prime J.J. Watt. And people are saying he's better than Aaron Donald. So that's my rant for the Steelers today. And I know it was a little bit light today because I know people will say, dislike. But I think that Justin Herbert and the Chargers are absolutely going to decimate, destroy, pound, pump, whatever you want to say, just embarrass the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know why? Because the Chargers have a future. Unlike the Pittsburgh Steelers, until they get rid of Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback, they don't have a future. All right. I think the Chargers are going to win this game 28-0.
Anyways, after that
very
long.
I'm kidding. I think the Chargers are going to win 28-17. In all seriousness, enough with the ranting. I think the X factor for this game, a key point, will be Justin Herbert and how much he keeps on progressing as a second-year quarterback. When the Steelers, on the other hand, are just going to have to focus on the run, but eventually, if the Chargers, they're going to have to abandon the run eventually, and that's what will be the X factor of the Steelers losing this game. Chargers win it 28-17.
See, here's where I think you're wrong here. I wouldn't say you're wrong, but this is where I think the X factor will be. Is if you can't stop the run, then you can open up your offense. And I know this as a player, as someone who constantly watches college, high school, NFL, no matter what level. If you can't stop the run, your offense is gonna be good in that game. Because then you can hit them with the play action. You can get your safeties and your linebackers to come in. You can get the medium throws. You can get the deep throws, which probably won't happen because, Big Ben can't throw the ball anymore. So you'll probably see a lot of mid, short passes. Obviously, Najee Harris, I think he's going to run over the Chargers defense because they're not great against the run this year. I have the Steelers winning it in a close game, sort of, 28-21.
Wow. The Steelers, Shane, I think, Shane, you've been hanging out with too many Steelers fans. All right? I think it'd be funny if we had a Steelers fans a guest on here one day. Oh my God, that'd be so funny.
I mean, we got
And
a few contestants that can do that.
I know one person that from Buffalo that I actually be they'll be my housemate, big Steelers fan, and I don't think I can deal with it next year. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I mean, I'm praying to God every day that the Steelers are gonna be terrible next year because I'll just have to hear it. Steelers, yeah. So I pray to God every day that the Steelers will be a terrible football team next year, so I don't have to hear the Steeler fan blabber all day. But that's enough of the Steelers this week, and the rant will continue next week on my ever-loving hatred of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this week, oh, and by the way, just know that according to Steelers fans, a daily reminder that Minkah Fitzpatrick can guard Darren Waller, and T.J. Watt's better than Myles Garrett. Daily reminder that T.J. Watt's better than Myles Garrett. Aaron Donald combined, he's the best pass rusher to ever be conceived. Najee Harris better than Derrick Henry, can't forget about that one. And lastly, Big Ben is still top 5. Don't forget that. So these are all from Steelers. Oh, lastly, and Pat Freiermuth is better than Kyle Pitts. Okay. So don't forget that, guys. Don't forget that. Yeah, the Falcons should have drafted Pat Freiermuth over Kyle Pitts. Yeah. But anyway, that's enough of the Steelers. That's enough of our segment of crazy Steelers thoughts. And now we are going into the best game of the week, Monday Night Football.
You can stop with the voice animations here, Will.
That's the theme song. I don't have an actual trumpet, so I have to do the beep boop boop boop.
Well, I can tell you right now that doesn't sound like the theme song.
Oh, well, maybe I've had too many concussions. So the next game we got is the New York Football Giants, who are 3-6, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 6-3, and the Buccaneers are 11-point favorites. Wow. Now the Super Bowl champions are looking to end the 2-game skid against the New York Giants. This is the team that Tom Brady's that's his kryptonite, is the New York Giants, and last year against the Giants and the Buccaneers was a very close game. The Buccaneers ended up pulling away, questionable call because Antoine Winfield had a pass interference that wasn't called. That dude's a bitch. Keep it a stack. Hate that guy. Yawn. That's what Shane said. Yawn. Poverty franchise, Shaneson. Poverty. But the thing for the Giants is, how will Saquon Barkley, number 26, the guy of Saquon's, return affect the Giants' dormant offense? And I think he will be the spark that we need, as Saquon Barkley is the most electrifying, just like how Rock is the most electrifying guy in sports entertainment. Saquon Barkley is the most electrifying running back in the NFL. He's great, and I think this is what the Giants need to potentially start a run. And what's crazy to say this is the NFC South isn't the Buccaneers just yet. Now, theoretically, if the Buccaneers, if they do lose, they will be 6-4, and then Cam the Man will be right behind him at 6-5 if they do win. So the NFC South is not the Buccaneers yet, and it's looking like the Buccaneers need to start winning games. What are your thoughts on this game, Shane?
Well, you know you're one of my best pals, one of my closest friends that I associate myself with on the daily, pretty much. In case you guys didn't know, Will is a Giants fan. I forever been, so don't get on this Tom Brady bandwagon guilt trip that you want to put me on.
Yeah, Steelers fans. He's not a bandwagon. Steelers fans. He's an actual fan.
I've forever been, back to the Josh Freeman days, a Buccaneers fan. I just want to say that if the Bucs win next week, I will say I told you so at least every 3 minutes on this podcast. But anyways, my thoughts on this, I think the Buccaneers are gonna, they've lost their last 2 games. Tom Brady, he has been playing like Tom Brady has been the first, 6 weeks of the year. I think he'll come back this week. I think he'll torch you guys. I think Saquon will get fallen on by Vita Vea and break his ankle again. But in all seriousness, I I do think Saquon's going to have a good return. I just don't think he'll be able to produce much in the rushing game, just because of how the Buccaneers rushing defense is. I think he'll be more, call it long shot, but I think he'll be more effective in the passing game this week. Buccaneers isn't the best against the passing this year, or as good as they're expected. But as defense as a whole, they haven't been as good as they expected. Their offense has been playing phenomenal. I think their lowest point game was 19, and that was last week against the Washington football team. I do have the Buccaneers, destroying the Giants this game in all seriousness, 35-17.
Nah, Shane, before I get my pick, just give me a quick answer. Who, when Daniel Jones was a rookie and he made his first start, who did he play?
Listen.
Who did he play? You gotta answer the question. Who did he play?
That was a while
ago. Who did he play?
We had Jameis Winston. You can't condone this.
Who did he play? Oh, wait. Who did he play?
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, when their defense wasn't great and their offense.
Right. So now
I'll just let you talk, Will.
And the Buccaneers were winning 28-10, and who came back to win that game? The New York Giants led that game-winning drive, and that's when I bought a Daniel Jones jersey. I actually got that Daniel Jones tattoo on my tramp stamp that says Daddy Dimes.
That was also 3 years
I'm
ago.
kidding.
Will.
I didn't get a tattoo, but regardless.
3 years
Also,
ago.
that defense wasn't that good, but they also still had Levante David. They had Devin White. They had Shaq Barrett. They had Vita Vea. So the defense wasn't that good.
Wasn't experienced. Devin White was a rookie.
Doesn't matter. He had Levante David. It don't matter.
Anyways,
but
the Buccaneers are winning this game 35-17, Will.
Daniel Jones has not lost on the road to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is 1-0, and he will make it 2-0. The Giants are going to win this game 20-17. Game-winning drive by Daddy Dimes. And they win. They pull off the upset.
You sound like a casual Steelers fan, but instead of a Steelers fan, you're a Giants fan with that statistic you just said. Yes, I did just go to that level, Will.
Just wait. Now, let's give our game of the week before we go over the picks record. My game of the week is the Washington football team versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, like I said, record-wise, this doesn't seem like a very good game, but the storyline for it of Cam Newton making his first start as the return of the Carolina Panthers. He's coming back. And then Washington, Ron Rivera is also coming back from the Panthers as he was their coach. So I think this is a very storyline game. Ron Rivera is a great coach. I think it'll be his first game coaching against the Panthers. And he also will be, like I said, going back to Carolina. And then, Curtis Samuel for the Panthers. He was on the Panthers last year. Now he's on Washington. He's going to go back. But I think the biggest thing will be Ron Rivera versus Cam Newton. This will be a very good game to watch in the early schedule. What about you, Shane?
My game of the week will be the Cowboys versus the Chiefs. I think this just either way, both teams got something to prove. If the Chiefs lose this game, they're 6-5. Their playoffs, they're slowly, getting less and less likely they'll be a top seed in the AFC. Dallas loses, you start to question, okay, can they beat these teams that are, playoff capable? So I think it'll just be a very interesting game, and that's why it's my game of the week.
Now for the picks record, I am 19-24, and Shane is 21-22. So Shane is actually taking the lead. He can't beat me in Madden, but he can beat me in the picks record, eh? But that is gonna conclude this week's episode of the Gridiron Talk podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for me and Shane. We really do appreciate the love and support. Tune in next week when we go over the Week 12 games. We got the Thanksgiving games next week, so we'll probably record on Wednesday. Maybe. We're not really too sure. Probably Wednesday. So stay tuned for Wednesday. We're going to go over the Thanksgiving games. There's 3 of them. Sadly, we got to watch the Lions again, so that'll be fun. But we do get to watch the Cowboys and Raiders, which would be a great game for Thanksgiving. And I'm not too sure what the last Thanksgiving game is off the top of my head. But regardless, that's going to be the
hopefully we see the Steelers.
Oh Jesus! It looks like I won't be watching Thanksgiving then if the Steelers are playing on Thanksgiving. Oh, it's the Bills and the Saints. Woo! No Steelers this year. Thank God. So when I turn on the Thanksgiving, when I eat Thanksgiving dinner, man, I'm digging into the turkey. You know what I'm saying? I'm eating my stuff and I'm eating my mash. I want to see the Lions getting blown out because Thanksgiving is not the same without the Lions getting blown out. It's like a tradition, you know. So, but regardless, we got the Thanksgiving games, and we got a bunch of good games next week. So it'll be a fun game. 5 primetime games. That is a lot. 5. So, with that being said, thank you guys so much. Tune in next Wednesday for our Gridiron Talk Thanksgiving edition of it. And Shane, you have anything else to add before we conclude the podcast?
No, just thank you for listening to me and Will. I know a lot of friends that support me and Will. And it's just gonna help with me with exposure for football, and it's gonna help Will with his other podcast about the Raiders. So thank you.
Yep, and like I said, I'm going to plug that right now. If you guys want to know more about the Las Vegas Raiders, tune into my other podcast. There's a premium one, so you're going to have to subscribe to the Las Vegas Raiders. It's called Raider Nation Today. It's on Ultimate Sports Network. Me and my buddy Joey Christmas, who did the thumbnail this week featuring Mahomes, Deebo Samuel, and Stephon Diggs. Shout out to him for doing that for us. We talk about the Raiders just like we talk about all the NFL games. So if you know someone that loves the Las Vegas Raiders, know someone that is a big fan of them, or just wants to know more about the Raiders, go check out our podcast, me and Joey Christmas, on UltimateSportsNetwork.com called Raider Nation Today. It really was, I'd love the support for that. But that's going to conclude this episode of the Gridiron Talk podcast. Once again, thank you guys so much for supporting us. All of you guys, Shane's friends, my friends, they're just, not randoms, but just people who love football. We really do appreciate it. If you do like it, don't forget to like this, subscribe, comment, share it with all your friends and family, put it on your social media, the whole 9 yards. And stay tuned for, like I said, next Wednesday, not Thursday, next Wednesday for our Thanksgiving edition of the Gridiron Talk podcast. Once again, thank you guys so much. Stay tuned and see ya. Don't forget to watch the football games this weekend.